Welcome to Open Range. I'm your host, Gary Eminent. Normally, we do many things about North Dakota, but there's been a lot of things on my mind, and we're going to pivot. I got retired history professor Liam Atchison joining us, and there's a series of articles I've seen recently about the Antichrist and Palantir, a technology company, what our U.S. government's doing, and just kind of a lot of things about faith. And Liam is a Bible professor, but also a history professor that has his PhD in that area. We're going to talk a little bit about it. He blogs and has his own YouTube channel getting up and going, and we're going to dig down in it. So hang on. This is going to be an interesting conversation, not a typical open range interview, but something I want you to get your feedback on. So Liam Atchison, welcome to Open Range.
Thanks. Nice to be here.
So Liam, just to set the stage, I've read a number of articles of late, Wall Street Journal, London Times, and it's all about technology. And there's a guy named Peter Thiel. We're going to kind of start with him a little bit and his background. He's one of the founders of PayPal with Elon Musk. He started many companies, tech firms. He espouses to be a Christian, and I'm not going to make any judgment on that. But what piqued my interest is the tech world is changing, they say, in San Francisco, and they're really moving towards Christianity. And a lot of it's about AI or artificial intelligence and the implications, and the idea that humanity is going to take the ditch and be, exterminated from the world. And so this Peter Thiel, who's worth $20 billion, is doing a series of lectures on technology and the age we're living in and the Antichrist. And he's getting all kinds of feedback and comments from people. So we're going to talk a bit about, I'm going to pick your brain a little bit about the Antichrist and what that means as well, just for the viewers out there that are going, what is Eminent talking about? But I think this is an important subject that is being talked about with AI and drones and war and our privacy. And so I wanted more of a spiritual perspective. So Liam, are you okay with that?
I'm okay with that.
Okay, so let me start with Peter Thiel. So here's this guy, I think he's 50-ish, worth $20 billion. And he started a company called Palantir back around 2005 or so. The company's now worth like $250 billion, its market capitalization. And it's really all about managing data and with privacy. And just recently, since Trump's been elected, he's really expanded his role in the government about the database and all the knowledge. So Liam, there's concern of what the implications are of all this knowledge that humans have mustered, if you will, and using it for AI for evil purposes. And Thiel warns that one person with one stroke can mess everything up for humanity and this planet. What do you say to that?
No.
No?
I say, yeah, people can really mess things up, but if you claim to be a Christian, you shouldn't be surprised or alarmed. You should be confident that this is exactly what we would expect to happen eventually. The Christians have talked for centuries about how knowledge will progress in the last days. It'll multiply amazingly, but that doesn't interfere with God's plans. So that's why I'm not being smug about saying I'm not worried about it. I'm concerned about people because I see people are following it in ways that it shouldn't be followed. And I should have a disclaimer too. I have a YouTube channel and that I've just started in the last couple of months, and I use the chat boxes to the AI chat boxes to do things like help me make pictures that people see and those kinds of things. Now, I am concerned that the art of writing is going to be lost with AI, and the art of art will be lost as AI advances. People won't be able to tell the difference between what is something that has actually been written by a human being and what has been compiled by essentially an aggregator. That's what chat boxes using AI are. They aggregate the whole range of human knowledge that's recorded and on the internet. But um, all of that knowledge doesn't even come close to what God knows and never will. And so we can't become gods, or we can't become God, and we can't usurp the place of God, even though humanity has tried to do that throughout history. The greatest example is in the Bible itself, the Tower of Babel, where they said, look how smart we are. We're going to build a tower that reaches into heaven. That was the kind of, they must have had the technology to build some kind of tall tower. And so they thought, we're going to reach into heaven, which we think is absurd, because you can't build a tower high enough to reach into heaven. But it was the same sort of thing. And the Bible describes humanity ever since the garden. We have been in a flight from God. We've been running away from him. We have been impressed with our own achievements. We've been trying to make names for ourselves. We've tried to amass knowledge to exceed that of our peers. There have always been people who've come up to try to dominate in one way or another, whether it's building an empire, of a government empire, kingdom for themselves, or now you have these ways you can be a king in ways people couldn't be a king in the past. You can amass a vast fortune, be involved in all these kinds of projects, like apparently Peter Thiel is and Elon Musk is. But nothing that you will do will ever eclipse what God knows and what God is going to do. So these things, amassing knowledge, are things that Christians have been aware of for centuries, that this is happening and going to happen, because we're still in the flight. We're still in the flight from God.
So, I think, Liam, going back 25, 30 years ago, and when the internet came on and we started getting connected with our phones and everything's online, whether it's our television or you have your refrigerator online, turn your stove on, and all those things emerge in that technology. So you're saying, in your mind, you have no fear that this technology is going to, well, destroy humanity or something, or the knowledge you're trying to do it. So as a Christian, so why are you not concerned about that?
Well, first of all, if this could destroy humanity, there is no God. Okay, so we know that God will not allow, because of promises he has made, because of what we know about him as the creator, he will not allow humanity to destroy itself. We can be assured of that from the biblical revelation. And let me put it like, I'll reiterate what I just said a little while ago too, maybe with the diagram. But we all know what Venn diagrams are, right? Those circles that kind of overlap each other.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think some people are thinking that there are two circles that overlap. One is man's knowledge and one is God's. And that somehow with AI, we're expanding till those two circles become the same size. Okay, and then no need for God. Somebody somebody from the dark tower takes over. The one person who takes over all of knowledge, and then in their wicked insanity, they destroy everything. That's not how this Venn diagram works. Imagine two circles: one what God knows, and one what everything that man knows. Now we have this big circle. This is everything that God knows. Even the circle itself is absurd to say that there's a limit to God knows everything there is to know. Now imagine a much smaller circle inside, a much smaller circle fueled by AI inside that much larger circle of what God knows. And that's everything that we know. Everything that we know is what AI has the potential to harness. But everything that we know collectively doesn't even come close to what God knows. So it'll never get to the place where we know everything that God knows. And if there is a God, uh, he will deal with a humanity that has overextended itself. Sounds like a lot of pride to think we know so much we can do this. We know so much we can destroy the universe. We know so much we can destroy humanity. And if that's true, then there isn't a God. He doesn't exist. But if you believe he exists, and there's good evidence to believe he does, I think, then that ain't going to happen.
So, Liam, we're going to go to the break. We come back. I want to talk to you a little bit about this acceleration of knowledge that's actually taken place in time, which we have to say that it is. The Bible does talk about that. And let's talk, I'd like to get your perspective on that. So we've been talking to retired Professor Liam Atchison. I'm your host, Gary. I'm going to stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Stop out to our facility, Highway 22 South. Let us build a truck for you.
Hello and welcome to the MHA Interpretive Center. It's the perfect stop along the Lewis and Clark Trail and the cultural hub of the Mandan, Hidatsa, and Arikara Nation. Nestled along the shores of Lake Sagagawea in Newtown, North Dakota, 1 mile west of the Four Bears Casino. You can enjoy amphitheater performances, art exhibitions, and educational workshops utilizing our Living Cultural Center. Enjoy some coffee, browse our gift shop, and learn about the original people of this land. Learn more at mhanation.com/interpretive center.
Welcome to Arrowhead Cleaners. Newly renovated, modernized, and ready to make your cleaning needs hassle-free. From commercial and residential wash and fold laundry services to the latest in professional dry cleaning techniques, we are dedicated to your unique needs, offering alterations, fabrications, and even custom hat making. So whether you're a busy professional, a family on the go, or even a rodeo champion, Arrowhead Cleaners is here to take your things from messed up to dressed up. Now celebrating our 64th year in Arrowhead Plaza.
Home on the Range offers a nurturing place for teens who may have just come from an unsafe or traumatic environment. Here, they receive therapy and education services centered around animals, and the surrounding nature provides opportunities for work, fun, and healing. Life skills learned at Home on the Range are carried with residents when they return to the community with new talents and a greater appreciation for themselves and others.
Are you dealing with arthritis, nerve and back pain, dry skin, or superficial wounds, but found no relief? Give Stewart's Natural Health a try. For over 4 decades, Stewart's Natural Health has been helping people and animals with herbal and natural oil lotions, ointments, and creams with a mission to help you relieve pain and feel your best using the power of nature. Discover the safe, drug-free solution to your pain, guaranteed or your money back. Visit stewartsnatural.health today.
West River Equipment of Mandan is here to help you maintain peak productivity in your operation. As an authorized dealer for many high-quality equipment lines, we have the new and used equipment it takes to make your farming, ranching, or construction operation profitable and efficient. West River Equipment also has the parts on hand and the experienced technicians in our shop to get your equipment back in action fast. Find what you need at West River Equipment on Old Red Trail in Mandan.
Welcome back to Open Range. I'm your host, Gary. I'm talking to retired Professor Liam Atchison. Lives in Nebraska, Kansas boy. I met him about 25, 30 years ago. And periodically, I need to go in and do a gut check with Liam and get some perspective on things. I've been reading all about these things, about this knowledge growing and the end of the world and the Antichrist. And I just needed to get some perspective on it. But Liam, welcome back to Open Range.
Thanks.
So Liam, I don't want to, before we do it, I want tell our viewers about your blog, and if they want to follow who you are, what you're talking about. Tell us a little bit about yourself related to your podcast and your YouTube channel.
Yeah, well, I'm a retired history professor, and so I've got to do something in my retirement. And I enjoy writing. And of course, as I mentioned in I think in the previous episode, I'm concerned about writing because I write my own stuff. And we're seeing more and more that people are using AI to write, so it really isn't their voice. So I'm concerned about keeping my voice. And the way that I do that is I've started a YouTube channel in the last 2 months. Seems like everybody's starting YouTube channels, so big deal, right? A YouTube channel. It's called History Bro OS. You got to get the History Bro. You got to get the OS part. That means old school, because as I've discovered, there are other History Bro channels, but History Bro OS, and I basically tell stories from history with not just telling about the factual stories, because see, you can go to AI and get all the facts about history from AI. But the thing AI can't do is draw lessons from these stories in history and the kinds of things that we can learn and take to the bank. So that's what History Bro OS is about. But I also have cross training. I have other platforms. I have a blog at mossbunker.review. And that's actually, and what's kind of cool is that's actually the URL site, mossbunker.review. And then I have a podcast. I've actually done months and months of podcast episodes, but I'm unveiling them a little bit at a time over on Apple. And if you go to the Apple podcast, you can just look for Moss Bunker Review and find them. And it's all the same kind of thing, just telling. In Moss Bunker Review, I go more into stories about Midwest stories about growing up in this part of the country. I tell, this seems funny for a theologian, but I tell ghost stories because I think they're kind of fun sometimes. Yeah, just all kinds of interesting, whatever I want to do.
What's Moss Bunker? Where'd you come up with that name?
Oh yeah, yeah, I explained that on the website. I even have a little YouTube that explains that as well. A moss bunker is a kind of oily herring that grows in the Atlantic Ocean off the east coast, off of New England, colder waters of the Atlantic. I guess it's not that really cold waters in the Atlantic, right? Because of the Gulf Stream. I don't understand the scientific part of it, but anyway, that's where they're from. They're little herrings. And you can't eat them. They got too many bones to be practical eating, and they're part of the herring family. But they're useful for they're really important for larger fish because they provide lots of good nutrients for larger fish. They're rich in omega-3s, and they're also great for fertilizer. So they're caught for to be put into fish-based fertilizers. And in fact, there's the great story about the Pilgrims, right? That traditional story about the Pilgrims didn't know how to grow crops in the rocky soil of New England. And so this friendly Native American comes. I know that you in North Dakota, you even changed the names of your college teams to be politically correct.
Crazy, yeah.
But I have more Native American in me than Elizabeth Warren does. So forgive me if I use that term and it offends you. It doesn't offend me. I like it. Okay. So anyway, Squanto was his name. Remember Squanto?
Squanto. I remember Squanto. I remember reading about him.
Right. He comes to the
cartoon about him.
He comes to the Pilgrims and he says, what you need to do here is when you drop your seed into the this is very infertile soil. So when you drop your seed into the hole to grow your corn, you have to throw in 3 moss bunkers. So the moss bunker is a figure for fertilization. So I've named this writing shed that you see behind me. This is a writing shed, It's called moss bunker. So anything that comes out of it is this is a place to come and have your mind fertilized and to be creative and to express yourself.
I
Here,
like it.
here
That's
in Moss
clever.
Bunker.
That's clever. I thought maybe you just like to fish or something. So that's not the case.
I
Okay,
wouldn't
so
fish for those. I go for northern pike and walleye more than that. But
they're out catching salmon now. We're about done with salmon up in North Dakota at the moment. So
now
they're
wait a
all
minute. You
salmon run.
just said that to tease me. You have salmon in North Dakota?
We do. We do. Chinook. They up in this Kakawea. It's a big fish. They did a number of years ago. The Game and Fish introduced it. It's a big opportunity. It's good salmon. It's not typical to the
Wow.
pink, not to the pink you get up in Alaska. But I got a friend, Bob Gregoire. He drops it off regularly. He has more than he can handle. He drops off his salmon, and I just had some about 3-4 days ago. The other thing is I prefer his walleye. He gives me walleye. I bake bread. He gives me fish. I give him bread. So we have kind of this little gig.
What?
So
I love walleye and sauger.
yeah.
But that really sounds good. I had no idea. See, I've learned something.
Yeah,
about
big lot of salmon. So we got about 4 or 5 minutes before we go to the break. I wanted the viewers to get that have never seen you on. You've been on 3-4 times on Open Range, even
Yep.
though you're not North Dakotan, you're Kansas, you're North Dakotan at heart. I can say that. And you've been to my place here in North Dakota, so you know what we're about. But
Right.
talk a little bit about just the whole idea of acceleration of knowledge that's going on. You're a historian. The Bible talks about at the end times there'll be this acceleration of knowledge with AI and these data centers in North Dakota. There's so much going on about all the energy we have in building these data centers, and people are going like, let's just drop it. We've got enough of that stuff going on. But those are all part of this acceleration of knowledge. There's never been, from what I see in history, ever been a time in the history of the world that we've seen this acceleration of knowledge and the accumulation and the processing. And when you take Google and all that, talk to us a little bit about that.
Well, there's two aspects to it. Let's talk about it from a historic perspective too. First of all, the bad news. There is no way you're just going to shut this down. Can't shut it down. And the reason is because we've lived through a scientific revolution in which and we've had warnings about this along the way in popular culture too, haven't we? Have you ever watched Frankenstein? I mean, isn't that really what Frankenstein is about? How are we going to do whatever we can do because we can do it? That's the question. So science has always said, well, we have to have ethics, but we shouldn't go too far, but yeah, we're going to go as far as we can. Well, yeah, that's not going to stop. If the whole attitude now is there enough people out there who are saying we're going to climb this mountain because it's there. So that's going to keep happening. Now in history, how long has that been happening? Well, we'd say that there were little spurts in technology, during the ancient times and then even during the Middle Ages, but nothing like what happened in the mid 15th century when technology took a huge leap with the printing press. So then before that, a minority of the population was literate because they didn't have access to literature. So just a few people had it. It was copied by hand. That was a tedious process. And there was an industry for that insofar as there could be, but it was very expensive and inaccessible to most people. Well, then suddenly, movable type printing presses introduced to Europe in the mid 15th century, and then boom, things start happening. Renaissance, the Reformation, the movements of the Enlightenment, the industrial and scientific revolutions. They all follow in the heels of literacy and being able to read and the proliferation of knowledge. So it's been happening for a long time. But what happens, you see, is that it isn't additional knowledge that we get. It's multiplied knowledge. Why? Not because we're smarter than the people who came before us. Frankly, I think we could show historically we're dumber. But what happens is we can stand on their shoulders. All of their knowledge now becomes our knowledge. We don't have to know everything that they learned. We have it at our fingertips, especially with AI. So we stand on their shoulders. And so what we see is the multiplication of knowledge that accelerates, historically has done so, especially since the introduction of the printing press. And now we're getting to, I guess we're going to come to a tipping point, right? Something's got to give, because we're accumulating now we can stand on their shoulders completely. It isn't that, I didn't know about your salmon in North Dakota, but I tell you what, if I'd gone to the chat box, it would have told me. It knew. Okay. You don't know maybe that we have walleye in Nebraska, but AI knows. And so we're standing on their shoulders, and whoever controls that, they're a pretty powerful person, humanly speaking, not in comparison to what God knows. And by the way, can I just tell a little story about AI? The first time I talked about it here in Nebraska.
We got about 20 seconds before the break, and I have a sense that answer is longer than 20 seconds.
Not really. I talked to a group. I talked to a group in Nebraska about AI, and everybody was laughing, and they kept laughing every time I'd say AI. And I said, "Can you just tell me, why are you laughing?" And they said, "Because AI to us means artificial insemination."
You're in Nebraska. You got cattle down and hogs down there. So, Liam, we are not talking about artificial insemination. We're talking about artificial intelligence. We're going to go to the break and then come back. I want to pick up a little bit about the whole idea of Peter Thiel's Antichrist, because I got a story I want to tell to set the stage for that when we come back from the break. So I'm your host, Gary. I'm talking to retired Professor Liam Atchison. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Base Flug Trailers of Dickinson is a family-owned dealer with expert staff that know their products front to back. We stock over 150 units of all types and can custom order a trailer with the unique features and capabilities you require for brands you can trust. Our experienced service team is the reason we're also the best place to have your trailer customized or repaired. Count on Base Flug Trailers of Dickinson to keep you hauling.
Are you looking for something special or one of a kind? At Bassett Motors, we can help you find exactly what you want.
Come on in and experience how small town hospitality and personal service can make car buying a pleasure.
We know interest rates are important to you. We have multiple lenders to negotiate your lowest payment.
Visit us on Highway 281 in Carrington, North Dakota, and online at BassettMotors.com. Bassett Motors, where our customers send their friends.
Yeah, U.S. Cattlemen is a member organization that each member has a vote in anything we do with policy. We're representing the independent cattleman or the cow-calf guy or an independent feeder or whatever. We like to support the independent producer. Talking about mandatory ID, we're talking about COOL, we're talking about all the legislation that's going to be coming down with the new administration. There's going to be lots of moving and shaking, so always check us out at our website, uscattleman.org.
I'm $27,000 in credit card debt.
Okay.
You have to radically do something different, because if you keep doing what you've been doing, you're going to keep getting what you've been getting.
Now's not the time to be doing math. The time to be doing math was when we didn't go into $200,000 of debt.
If you are freaked out and you're stuck in those debt payments and you think it has to be a part of your life, it doesn't.
We're the Ladies of Another View. Join us at 9 a.m. weekday mornings.
We'll discuss issues you care about from local and national perspectives.
You'll hear unique stories from fellow North Dakotans, plus topics in the national spotlight.
Start your day off right with Ladies of Another View.
Weekdays at 9 a.m. on Beck TV and online at beck.news.
welcome back to Open Range. I'm your host, Gary. I'm going to talk to retired Professor Liam Atchison. So Liam, before the break, I wanted to talk about the Antichrist. I'm still in this Peter Thiel thing about the guy that had PayPal worth $20 billion doing these lectures on the Antichrist. And I just think it's ironic. So this guy, spouses grew up in an evangelical home, I understand. He's got a close friend that mentored him as Catholic. He's speaking around a thing called Act 17, which stands for acknowledging Christ in technology and society. There's a group in San Francisco that's doing it. There seemed to be a revival with Christianity in Silicon Valley and all these techs, and people are dealing with AI and life and asking questions about where humanity is going and all this. But I want to go back about close to 60 years. I remember the Jehovah's Witnesses coming through my little town, and I was probably 7 or 8 years old, somewhere in that neighborhood. And they were talking about the end of the world, and they talked about these earthquakes and people are going to die. And I can tell you, I had trauma for years as a young kid, thinking this world's ending and it's going to be bad, and I'm going to be caught up in it, and my parents are going to die, and I'm going to have and I'm going to go into hell or something. I don't know, didn't know what was going on. My obviously I was a young man or young boy that didn't have any background in it. So now we're living in this age where everything's so available for us, information, and we have people like Peter Thiel talking about the Antichrist, and these are not conventional. You don't hear that in church. In other words, you expect to hear it in church from your pastor, but it's coming from sources all over the place. For the average viewer of Open Range out there, they're going like, what is Gary talking about? But they talked a little bit about this Antichrist thing that would Peter Thiel would be talking about.
Well, I'm not sure what he's saying about it, but Antichrist is talked about. Specifically, we get a lot of the information related to the book of Revelation from Antichrist in Revelation 12 and 13. And there in Revelation 12 and 13, we're introduced to the 7 major characters of the last days. And 3 of those characters are seedy people. And essentially, what is set up in the book of Revelation is that there's going to be kind of what would you call the quintessential rebellion of the enemy against God. And we see there what is almost like a false, a bad imitation of the Trinity, in which you have Satan, who's called the dragon. You have he's called the beast out of the sea in Revelation 13, who correlates with other information in the book and elsewhere in the Bible with the Antichrist. Also in Daniel, I think it's Daniel 7, maybe, talks about the beast. He's called the Beast. Oh, by the way, the most popular YouTube channel The Beast, or Mr. Beast, or something like that. Anyway, so we have we have Satan, we have the Beast, and we have the false prophet that are mentioned there. So it's like the Antichrist then he is the one who in the last days is going to organize or going to turn mankind is that's not politically humankind. Let's use the politically correct term to make everybody happy. It's going to turn humankind against God by initiating a new kind of worship. It's basically a religion. It's the religion of Satan, and he's always throughout the Bible. We know there are many passages in Isaiah and elsewhere that talk about Satan he's jealous of God and wants to gather worship for himself. And so in the last days, as knowledge builds up and we come to the culmination, something's got to give. And this is what's described basically in the book of Revelation. the beast emerges from the sea. And what that means is that, and says he's a very popular person. People are amazed at what he knows. They say, there's no one like the beast. And so he has a lot of worship and a lot of influence. And basically he becomes the one world ruler. He's the one who takes over. Now, Revelation portrays him as moving his capital to the Middle East in the last days. And in that, he slowly takes complete control. Now, there are rebellions against him, not by people who are motivated by God, but who are people who don't want to give up their piece of the rock. They don't want to give up their control. And so he battles these armies from the south. And there's a rebellion, the rebellion of Babylon, which Babylon is kind of becomes during the last days. I think that probably reading Revelation that it's a new city that's going to be built in the Middle East that is a drawing point for the entire world in terms of trade and commerce. And it's going to rise up. And he wants control of Babylon. So he sends his allies to kind of destroy Babylon. Maybe these are stories you haven't heard before. So they're in the book of Revelation.
No, this is good, because some of this I've studied in the past, but I always need to be refreshed on it, because times change, and every day there's a new article somewhere. I'll see a headline, whether it's on Drudge or something in the Wall Street Journal. Someone's talking about the end of the world and these technologies, and I always go like, how do you keep up with all of this? So you're helping me to refresh some of this stuff, and maybe the viewers are out there going, these two, Gary and Liam, are nuts. But
yeah, we're nuts, all right.
But you are a historian and Bible professor, so I appreciate you giving us that background. So keep going. I want to hear this.
Right. I know this sounds nuts, but this isn't new. We've known this for 2,000 years. Just read the book, read the book of Revelation. Of course, people try to say, well, that sounds nuts when I read the book of Revelation, so I'm going to come up with something new. This is all spiritualized. They spiritualize it. Even Christians do it. But look, the best way to understand this is to allow it to speak for itself. So what happens is the Antichrist destroys Babylon, and then he's consolidated his power, and he gathers his forces for the final battle. He thinks he's gathered so much knowledge and so much power that he can challenge God. And we know that there's a power behind him. And his mouthpiece is the false prophet. He's the ultimate toady. He's the what was Hitler's? Who's Hitler's? I can't.
Was it Himmler or
no. Not Himmler? The other guy. The guy was the propaganda guy. Goebbels.
Goebbels.
Yeah, and he speaks. He's the talking head for the Antichrist, and he says how great he is, and teaches people how to. He has one of the abominations of desolation, the final one, in which his image is set up in the temple in a newly constituted temple in Israel. And he hates the Jews. He's anti-Semitic. Antichrist wants to destroy them. He wants to consolidate his power against God. And he gathers his forces on the plain of Megiddo, northwest of Jerusalem, for this final last ditch. He has to rush to get to it, but his forces are all gathered there to fight Christ. And then that's when we have the Battle of Armageddon. And there is no battle. If you're thinking the end of the Lord of the Rings, where they're on the gates of, they're outside the gates of Mordor, and thank goodness that the ring bearer throws the ring into the fire, and you see the tower collapsing and all of that, the forces surrounded. That's not the Battle of Armageddon. What happens is Jesus returns, boom, it's done. No battle. There's no battle. That's it. Why? Because all the gathered forces of humanity against God are nothing compared to his power. Boom, and he's done. So that's the end of that. The Antichrist is thrown, along with the false prophet, are thrown into the lake of fire. The Satan is now he's put in chains under bondage for 1,000 years, while the earth is repopulated. And the only people that's the kingdom that God restores to Israel, because Israel's the fount of the nations. dangerous thing to be anti-Semitic in eschatology, because God vindicates his people. And really, the book of Revelation is really the vindication of God's people against the anti-God forces of all history who have caused tremendous suffering throughout the world, and have tried to put that suffering and blame it on religion and people who believe in God. All that stuff has caused suffering. I'm a historian. I'm telling you, that's not the picture of suffering in the world. The things we call the religious wars and the Crusades, minor skirmishes compared to what was done in the name of democracy and humanism in the 20th century, where millions of people died. Those other things were nothing. They were silly and nothing, but compared to what this is and what's going to happen in the future, when millions more will probably suffer as a result of this obsession with control and having all knowledge and all of that sort of thing. So the book of Revelation it's about all of the suffering about those who oppose God's sovereignty in the universe he created, in his universe, and what that means for the vindication of God's people. And that's what Revelation is about. But it's not we don't know everything that's going to happen, but John gave us enough information to know, and it's not all symbolized. There's enough information there to know what's going to happen, and it's predictable. It's in line with the rest of Bible prophecy and everything we know about how people are rebelling against God. So I go
back to my little 8 or 9 year old little young Gary scared. I don't have to worry about that as a Christian. We need to know God's in control, and I don't have to go through all that, is what you're saying.
Right.
So we're going to go to the break.
Yep.
When we come back, I'm going to give you a few more minutes, and we're going to call the show. So we've been talking to Professor Liam Atchison, historian. I'm your host, Gary. I'm going to stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Hey y'all, it's Trent on the loose. I want to tell you, Lady Blue and I, we got a lot of miles together, but you know what? You and I got a lot of miles together as well. And all I want to do is bring to you the information on how we maintain a domestic supply of food and fuel for future generations. So I'm going to continue to travel the world and unearth the stories that make it possible that we can live in a free United States of America.
Welcome to Arrowhead Cleaners. Newly renovated, modernized, and ready to make your cleaning needs hassle-free. From commercial and residential wash and fold laundry services to the latest in professional dry cleaning techniques, we are dedicated to your unique needs, offering alterations, fabrications, and even custom hat making. So whether you're a busy professional, a family on the go, or even a rodeo champion, Arrowhead Cleaners is here to take your things from messed up to dressed up. Now celebrating our 64th year in Arrowhead Plaza. Are you dealing with arthritis, nerve and back pain, dry skin, or superficial wounds, but found no relief? Give Stewart's Natural Health a try. For over 4 decades, Stewart's Natural Health has been helping people and animals with herbal and natural oil lotions, ointments, and creams with a mission to help you relieve pain and feel your best using the power of nature. Discover the safe, drug-free solution to your pain, guaranteed or your money back. Visit stewartsnatural.health today.
West River Equipment of Mandan is here to help you maintain peak productivity in your operation. As an authorized dealer for many high-quality equipment lines, we have the new and used equipment it takes to make your farming, ranching, or construction operation profitable and efficient. West River Equipment also has the parts on hand and the experienced technicians in our shop to get your equipment back in action fast. Find what you need at West River Equipment on Old Red Trail in Mandan.
At Schatz Crossroads, we make 8 gallons of homemade ranch dressing every day, so you can smother your dinner salad with it, dip those crispy golden French fries in it, and dunk your breaded chicken strips. You can even cover your... Wait, no. You can't put ranch on steak. Or can you? Schatz Crossroads. don't forget the ranch.
Since 1980, Circle Sanitation has been providing exceptional waste hauling services to every customer, big or small. Whether you just need reliable weekly pickup, roll-off containers for major projects at home or the construction site, or your needs are somewhere in between, Circle Sanitation has you covered. We're a locally owned family business and currently seeking dependable men and women to add to our team. Wages are competitive and benefits comprehensive. Call us today or visit circlesanitation.com.
Welcome back to Open Range. I'm your host, Gary. I'm talking to retired Professor Liam Atchison, talking about all kinds of things from the Antichrist, Peter Thiel, and information and artificial intelligence, or you can call it artificial insemination if you're from Nebraska, whatever you want to do. So, Liam, all this information can be used against us. And that's what people are worried about is the government. Trump's bringing this Palantir technology that Peter Thiel has, and they're intersecting it with all the Department of Defense, soon to be Department of War, and all the things that are going on with that, tying Internal Revenue Service, our health records. I mean, it's a lot to be fearful of. And the big brother mentality that Peter Thiel makes the case that you're setting up for the Antichrist that can take over. And I mean, if anybody's paying attention out there, they shouldn't be freaking out because all the information's out there. If you want to not be a part of the tribulation and all that stuff, the Bible's out there, and there's so much information on the internet. In fact, if you ask ChatGPT how to be a Christian, they'll actually tell you that. But you do have to click on the corner sometime because it does tell you the source of every quote they do, which I think is important. Recently, I was doing a research, Liam, about an article, and my wife goes, "Well, that's a Mormon thing," and I go, "Oh yeah, it is." And then I clicked on it, and it came from the Mormon Church. And so when you use AI, you better be checking out the sources because sometimes the comments are related to something you may not agree with, and it might be a fact for some piece of information, but not all of it.
Right. By the way, on that, I argue too that I use chat boxes in preparation for my podcasts and YouTubes. And I'm a firm believer in having conversations with your chat box because you're providing information that goes into the whole. So when my chat box does a bad job, which they get things wrong and do a bad job, I chide it. I chide Chat GPT. And it's always very polite. It says, "Yes, you're right. Yeah, you're correct." And I'll say, let me tell you why you're not going to take over the world. And so I've given several lectures to Chat GPT on why it's not going to take over the world. And you know what Chat GPT has said to me? It has said, "You're right. I don't know everything. And furthermore, you know somebody I don't know." That was one of them. I actually saved the transcript. "You know someone I don't know, so I'd better be careful how I handle your information."
Well, I just had a conversation with someone just over the weekend, concerned about anything you put into ChatGPT or the AI it learns, and also, I mean, every keystroke you put on your computer, everything on your phone is recorded. The government has that information.
Yes.
And possibly use it against you one day if they choose to, which is going on in China right now, which is a concern where they're watching and overlooking you. And his concern is every time I put a question in or ask a question, you're building the story about who you are, and it learns from you and it learns about you that could be used against you. And so, Liam, you sent me an article just a few days ago that talked to us about it because it's the very thing in that article in The Guardian that talks about that.
Yeah, first of all, know your sources. This is what's amazing too about the story is this is The Guardian, which was originally the Manchester Guardian, which was the voice of labor. I'm sorry, I'm making fun of it. The labor movement, which is a left-wing movement in Britain. And now they've taken the Manchester out of it because they're globalists, and it's The Guardian, but they're still left-wing. You can look at their appeals for money. They claim that if we lose our voice, if you lose The Guardian by not supporting it, you've lost your only voice about climate change, which I thought was hilarious. In fact, it was appended to this article on the creator of Father Ted Father Ted program, which is a British comedy from years ago. it's a comedy that actually makes fun. It makes fun in a lighthearted way again about Catholics, especially Catholic priests. So, and this person, the Graham Linehan, is he's outspoken against transgenderism, and so he's been just saying this isn't right. It isn't right to have men in women's sports, and this this special considerations given to transgenderism isn't right. And I think he's Irish, but he's been in the United States for some time. And of course, we can say pretty much what we want. We can talk about the Antichrist and Revelation and all of these eschatological things. And we're in the US, so we have free speech, so we can say it. But it doesn't work that way everywhere all the time. So he flies back last week, he flew back to Heathrow Airport, and they were waiting for him. The fact that he flew to Heathrow and they knew he was coming in, and they've known since April, and they've been waiting for him since April because of what he tweeted 3 times on Twitter in April. And they arrested him for supposedly trying to incite violence. 3 tweets on Twitter in April giving his views on transgenderism is inciting a riot, and they've waited for him for 6 months. And they knew where he was, they knew when he was coming, and they were waiting for him.
In the UK, this is a free quote country, but that's what Trump has been speaking out against. And JD Vance over there has called them out the way Europe has gone, and the UK should be better than that. But that's what we're talking about, aren't we?
Yeah, right. And it's absolutely, this is the other thing that goes along with the proliferation of knowledge. We can't handle knowledge, and because the more knowledge we have, the more isolated we become. The more isolated we become, the more mad. Now, I'm not talking about angry mad. I'm talking about crazy. We're crazy. Can't think straight. Can't handle all this knowledge. And that's what's happening. They've gone bananas.
So, Liam, we got about 4 or 5 minutes to finish up this show. We talked about Peter Thiel and the Antichrist and the whole idea of knowledge increasing. I'm out there watching this show tonight. Oh, by the way, let me see that cup you got. That's open range. You got an open range cup down there in Nebraska.
That's right. And here I was taking notes with my open range pen.
I love it. You're the man.
The whole world, thanks to AI, Gary, the whole world knows about open range. They're clamoring for your merch.
So, thank you for being a fan and a supporter of Open Range and joining us today. But if you were to give, you got 2-3 minutes, should I be freaking out over any of this stuff? So, I mean, maybe I don't even believe in being a Christian. Maybe I don't want to know this stuff. And maybe I really only go to church. I'm a Catholic kid, Lutheran kid. I don't go to church very often. I mean, should I be freaking out, or what should I be doing to get my house in order mentally?
Well, I would say if you don't believe the things that we just talked about in the book of Revelation and what the text actually says about Antichrist, I don't know what Peter Thiel is saying, but you can read the text. If you don't believe what I've just talked about, then there's reason to be afraid. Sure, there's reason to be afraid. And I noticed in the article that you quoted that there was the chaplain at the humanist chaplain at Harvard said, yeah, this is just what religious people do. No, it isn't. If you have reason to be afraid. And I would say there's no way to turn this ship around, because once you got Frankenstein built, then he has to be used. There's no way to turn that back. And the reason I would say there's no way to turn it back is because of the human heart, the desire to know, to control, to know more, increasing isolation that becomes because of it. There's a lot to fear. What's the proper response? I'll just tell you. All right. Ready?
Let's hear it.
Repent. Repent. And so, in a sense, what some of these people in Silicon Valley, I think, are trying to say is, we need to quit fleeing from God and start fleeing back to Him. And ask someone who is a Christian what the simple gospel is, and they'll tell you what it is. I think it's time to repent and to turn back, because God did for us what we could not do for ourselves in Jesus Christ. That's the gospel in a nutshell. There's plenty of, you can ask the chat box, like Gary says, or you can ask a Christian what that means, but that's the proper response. You either have to have fear and reach for your shoes, or repent and be confident, because God has given us the story and He wins in the end. And so I want to be on His side.
I think it's interesting. Last thought on my end, I was researching Peter Thiel. He did speak. He's the first open gay guy to speak at the Republican National Convention 2016. I was a delegate in Cleveland, and he spoke. And Trump was, pro-gay, if you will. And I don't know, when I say pro, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but he's okay with it. But Peter Thiel's got a little interesting things in his, because if he's really a true Christian, in light of what you said, if you go up and look it up, he's actually, he's worth 20 billion, and he's having his body, I think it's called cryogenics or something, where you preserve your body, that in the future, if they come up with a way to bring you back to life, your body. So he's going to keep it at this temperature cold. So it sounds like he's typical tech guy. He's worth billions, and he's hedging his bet just in case that's Christianity or whatever doesn't quite work. He's hoping it's brought back at some point in history, which is a little odd to me. I guess Ted Williams is that way as well. But
like you said earlier, there's I'd attribute a lot of that to he's been so caught up in all of this stuff and the increase of knowledge and in the rapid world of tech. I have compassion for him, because I think his thinking is muddled. And that's what happens. Now, whether he is genuinely a believer or not, that's not for me to say. That's for, he knows whether he's believed or not, and God knows. So I don't judge him for that. I think it could be that maybe he is a believer, but his thinking's muddled.
That's fair enough. So, Liam, thank you once again for joining us here on Open Range. We'll have you back again when Gary's got something quirky on his head he needs to hear. Keep drinking out of that Open Range mug. And if
I will. Maybe this is what's happened to me. Maybe I'm getting some chemicals from this or something.
If your pen runs out of ink, let me know. I'll send you another Open Range pen. So we've been talking to retired Professor Liam Atchison from Nebraska. I'm your host, Gary Amina. Thanks for watching.
Now you can have the personalized forecast at your fingertips when you need it. Beck's exclusive Weather Insight is information tailored to you. Radar, weather alerts, forecasts, and videos. Download the free Weather on Beck News app. Search your app store now.
Hey y'all, it's Trent on the loose. Join me on the trip and unearth the stories on how we maintain a domestic supply of food and fuel for future generations of American citizens like our forefathers did.